Not on Shabbos. No, because there's rain muktzah. I remember looking at what Shabbos talks about it. I don't remember what he says. As far as no, I don't think it is muktzah because I think that we paskin that the rain was always there. It's just a matter of moving rain. Probably not. Yeah, it's on. In there, there's another room.
Right. Is it good? Can
Yes, I think so. Chaim, can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So we just established 8:10 the Shiur Mitzvah Shem. Officially 8:10, not to do with Mincha Ma'ariv until Prague gets a bit earlier.
Tuesdays till 9, you said.
Yeah, Tuesdays only till 9, but usually it's 10 past, maybe a bit earlier. I just say, Shabbos be confirmed. Everybody should get in touch with Tolly and tell him your preferences. No, thank you. No. Very briefly, the Shomei Munim Rebbe was very fond of the following mashal. I used to say it regularly. It's in his sefer as well. That this world is like a rope. When I was in Jewish day, there's a gym, and there's a gym. In the gym, you have like these ropes dangling. I don't know if they still have it. Yes, that's right. And you have to climb up it. I was never able to climb up it. Even the ones with knots and I couldn't climb. Never mind. There were some boys. This world is like a rope. And what happens is a person has to pull himself up and hold on. And it's not easy. We've been holding on, he says, for thousands of years, because at the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was almost like left us dangling in Golus. He says every so often, HaKadosh Baruch Hu feels that Klal Yisrael need to be tested. What he does is he shakes the rope. When the rope's being shaken, it's very, very hard to hold on. And you need to put all your energy, he says, just to keep your fingernails, to hold on by your fingernails that you don't fall off the rope. He used to say this is a mashal of this world, that if you fall off the rope, you fall into the depths. That's the idea. And the rope is the emunah which connects us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We used to use this mashal a very, very lot. And the person has to hold on. And he says, when Mashiach comes, we will see that those who held on, even if he says, even if they only held on to the fibers, and they were literally loose, but at least they were connected on some level to the rope, they will be connected to Mashiach and will be saved. But those who've given up on their emunah to Hashem, they'll be left on the floor, so to speak. That's his marshal. I was feeling that, to a certain extent, this whole virus was a huge shake that Baruch Hu did. At the end of the day, that it was very turbulent. It was very, very hard to hold on. A lot of people told me that they gave up on the daf. I can't tell you how many people told me that they started with the daf. It was too much. It said there's Zoom. One person said we did tired. One person is too. Not just from my information. A lot of people not going to any shit told me they've given up on the daf. At the end of the day, it was a very hard shake of the rope. And we have to understand, at the end of the day, we have to be very grateful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We should be very happy that we managed to at least hold on. Might not be as tight as we would have liked it and everything else, but we held on to the rope. And now that the rope has stopped shaking, or is slightly less shaking, I should say, our job is to climb up the rope. It's not enough just to hold on. We have to pull ourselves higher. That was the whole idea of the rope. You're supposed to pull yourself higher and higher towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But it's a tremendous sipuk that we managed to hold on. You have to remember, at the end of the day, he says many times, all HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks from a person is just hold on. Sometimes it's very turbulent. It's very hard to do more than that. I'd also like to mention a very big thank you to Tolly Udekin and to Moshe Snitsky for your help. It's not so straightforward, a lot of background help. And for everybody in my everybody that comes gives a tremendous chizuk. Anyway, starting Baruch Shem Shechiyonu Vikimonu back in Beis Yisrael, and we're back even on Zoom. It's also a tremendous chizuk. Still holding on. It's still holding on to the rope on some level, holding on to the connection. We're starting a new perek. This perek discusses if there's a fire. What is one allowed to save and one is not allowed to save? I'm going to start with a slightly complicated thing, which Teresa says, which is interesting that That's what the arts come. Sift and others don't bother with this thesis, but it's important thesis. If you've got the ability to see thesis inside, it's always better. It's the first thesis of the parak. Thesis, Omer Rabbeinu Tam, the Kula Hai Pirkam, Hai Kshenoflo Dleika Boise Baise Boise Chotza, the Kivin Shei Sham Vadei Bol. He shows the Osilich Buyek and Fast Bekamor. Noflo Dleika Baise Achem Mutalatzlaka. Thesis is a very interesting thing. I'll say it over this morning to somebody. You say, can't believe thesis says it until I show it to him. Thesis is a very counterintuitive thing. And that is like this. Now, if a person has a fire, we're talking about for quite a lot. There are a lot of sugyas about fires. Many sugyas, unfortunately, in olden days, fires was very, very, very common, even nowadays. Somebody told me that you can't read the biography of a tzaddik of more than 100 years ago that didn't have a fire in his lifetime, either in his own house. Fire was a very common thing. They didn't have central heating, so they used to use fires for the heating, etc. The text says like this, that if the fire is in one's house, the Chazal said, don't save anything. Let everything burn, except for certain things which we're going to learn now that you are allowed to save. But most things you have to let burn. If there's a fire in somebody else's house, and that person's house is far away from you, then you're allowed to save everything. And that is counterintuitive. Why is that? And Teis explains like this. And this is one of the hardest things to learn by Arachas Leik if you ever get to do the Mishnah Berurah. And that is like this. With a fire, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, Chazal felt we have to be makel. We have to allow people to do things. Because if we don't allow people to do things, what we'll end up doing? They'll end up putting out the fire and they'll end up doing this Isur D'Oraisa. And also people, it's a financial loss and etc. So we had to help people. On the other hand, Chazal felt that it's the other way around. That if we allow people to do a bit, then they will end up doing much more and then coming to put out the fire. So certain things they forbade only because there's a fire. But if there's a fire down the road and there's no chance of my house catching fire, then I'm allowed to. And that's a very interesting halacha, that the further the fire is, sometimes we're more makel. The closer it is, the less makel, because now we have to be more scared that you'll get bohol. Bohol means you'll get panic-stricken. When you get panic-stricken, we forbid you more. It's a complicated nekuda, and we'll come back to it. It's like a small nekuda to remember in the halachas. Okay. Says the Mishnah, Kol kisvei HaKodesh, if there's a fire, all Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim. That means not just Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksuvim. You can save them from a fire. Whether you're allowed to read from them, whether you're not allowed to read from them. We will see, explained outside, it was easier, that in the olden days, on Shabbos morning, the Rav would give a drosha in halacha. And these were very, very important droshas. And some people didn't want to hear the drosha. Things haven't changed in thousands of years. And what would happen is they'd go outside and read interesting things. What's interesting? Ksuvim were interesting. So Chazal forbade one to read Ksuvim on Shabbos morning in order that people should go to the drosha. So whether you're allowed to or whether you're not allowed to, you're allowed to save it from a fire. Even if they're written in any language, to them Geniza, they have to be put away in Geniza. If they mind Kohen Ben, why not allowed to read them? If they bit away Beis HaMedrash, because they cause a person to go away from the Beis HaMedrash. So the Mishnah really tells us three halachas, not just Torah, but also Nevi'im and Ksuvim. Not just Torah, Nevi'im and Ksuvim, but even those that are forbidden to be read, as the Gemara describes in greater detail. And also in any language. So if you've got an English Nevi'im, all of them, you're allowed to save from a fire, and you have to put them in Geniza if they go decay. If they decay, put them in things. Says the Gemara. Itma. Hoi Ksuvim Tagum V'choloshim. Nevi'im and Ksuvim that are written in any language. You're not allowed to save them. You're allowed to save them. On something which, if you look in the Mishnah, it seems clearly one way. The Gemara will discuss that in a minute. In our Mishnah, it seems clearly you're allowed to save. An English translation of a Chumash, the Mishnah says explicitly you're allowed to save it. Yet when we come to the Gemara, the bigger machlokas, if you're allowed to or not allowed to save. It says the Gemara like this. There's a machlokas if in Gemara Megillah, are you allowed to write Nevi'im and Ksuvim in foreign languages? Are you allowed to? So let's just see it's a second taste on the page because it's very important. Because Tesis tells us that all of this is not the Galam. The Hashta says Tesis nowadays. That means nowadays, if you've got an English translation, even without a word of Gemara, French, any language, then you're allowed to save them and you're allowed to learn from them. Because Hashem, unfortunately nowadays we forget things and we don't understand things. So therefore we're allowed to read Torah in any language and There's nothing, and therefore all this sugya, in fact, Tesis tells us, is not Negal L'Maisa. Because the next Gemara is going to be, we're all allowed to learn, so we're not allowed to learn. We're allowed to learn from anything. We're allowed to learn in French, English, anything. Because it's very difficult for us to remember our Gemara. But in the olden days, before this existed, in the times of the Tanoim and the Morim, there was a fundamental machleikus if you're allowed to write Ternavim and Suvim in foreign languages. It's based on, it's a whole Gemara and Megillah, I'm not going to go into it now. I say, are you allowed to bichlal write? If you're not allowed to write them, you're not allowed to learn from them. The same machleikus is based on each other. Because if you're not allowed to write them, you're not allowed to learn from them because these are actually not considered books at all. And you're not allowed to learn off by heart. So again, there's a machleikus if you're allowed to write a targum, you're allowed to write a foreign language of Ternavim and Ksuvim. The same machleikus if you're allowed to write them is machleikus if you're allowed to learn from them. So the more explains that. We just had a machleikus if you're allowed to save on Shabbos a sefer that's been written in a foreign language. So more like this. That you're allowed to read from them, allowed to learn from them. Everybody agrees you're allowed to save it. If you're allowed to learn from them, it's a proper sefer. Of course you're allowed to save it. You're not allowed to. You're not allowed to ever learn from this sefer. So you're never going to use it in your whole lifetime. You got an English sefer turn, English Tehillim. You're never going to use it. So if that's the case, you're never going to use it, so you're not allowed to save it. At the end of the day, it's Kisvei HaKodesh, and because of the Bizoin, you're allowed to save them. So it's a machleikus if you're allowed to save, and the machleikus is only according to the Mandama that you're not allowed to learn from them. According to the Mandama that you are allowed to learn from them, that there's no shaila whatsoever. Now the Gemara quotes Amishnah. Thank God, Kisvei HaKodesh tzilus with that big when shkoin ben mention koin ben nafich ksum v'cholosh. My love shkoin ben nevim and shkoin ksum. The Gemara now explains, and it's a good question why the Gemara needs to explain this every time. Koin ben is nevim because nevim you're always allowed to learn. Ein koin ben is referring to ksuvim because ksuvim you're not allowed to learn. Like we explained, why not allowed to learn ksuvim? Because a person will take away from going to his shiur. So therefore, my life shkoin ben nevim shkoin ben ksuvim. After ksuvim v'choloshim, the lo nitlo likros ben. You're not allowed to learn from them. And the Mishnah says you're allowed to avon is kashan avon again. Where the Bachlekes of non Chista, you're allowed to save a sefer which is written in a foreign language. Avon says you're not allowed to. As is Gemara in our Mishnah, it says mefush that you are allowed to. Now, what could you have answered? A very, very simple answer. Anybody got the ability to work it out? What could have been an answer which wasn't even suggest? Their machlokes is only according to the Mandama that you're not allowed to learn from them. Perhaps our Mishnah is going according to the Mandama that you are allowed to write in foreign languages. And according to that Mandama, everybody agrees you're allowed to save. So what's the most kash for our Mishnah? And the Ritva says, because of the fact that if our Mishnah was going according to the Mandama that you're allowed to write in foreign languages, then the Mishnah will need to tell us such a thing. It's such an obvious halacha. It's only because our Mishnah holds that you're not allowed to read in the Rim and Ksuvim. That is why the Mishnah had to add this point. Okay, I just want to suggest that we could have answered that, but the Gemara did not even suggest it. The Gemara understood that according to the Mandama, they're allowed to read them. It's not a kasha, there's no chiddush. So therefore, our Mishnah is going according to the Mandama, they're not allowed to learn from them. And after the Mishnah says you're allowed to save them, and that's not like Avona. Does our Mishnah even make any sense? That means our Mishnah has a fundamental question. In the Mishnah, it tells us mainly two halachas. One is they're allowed to save it from a fire. And second of all, you have to put it in Geniza. Now, the halacha that you have to put it in Geniza is not a chiddush. If you're allowed to on Shabbos save it from a fire, and we're not worried that by letting you save it from a fire, you might come to be over Yisur. Kavachomer, you have to put it in Geniza. What's the chiddush you have to put it in Geniza? What would you think? That you're allowed to save it from a fire, but on the other hand, you can chuck it in a bin. Mechatesa, of course you can put it in Geniza. What else were you thinking? So what's the chiddush of the Geniza? So he says like this. Does our Mishnah make any sense? If you're allowed to save it, is there a question whether you need to put it in Geniza? Each one explains the Mishnah according to their opinion. And the more explains. That's only if it's international Kodesh. You're not allowed to save them. Why not? Because since you're not allowed to read from them, you're not allowed to save from them, like I hold. So he adds a statement to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah is only talking about Lashon HaKodesh. When it's in a separate language, then you're not allowed to save them like I hold. But nevertheless, you still need to put it in Geniza. You have to put it in Shemus because you don't throw it in the bin. That's his Rav Huna. You still have to do Geniza. There's what? Like the simple way of writing our Mishnah. That you always have to save it. Why do you always have to save it in any language? Why? Because at the end of the day, it is Kisvei HaKodesh. And even though you're not allowed to read from them, it's still considered Kodesh. But the Mishnah then adds, and they're decayed to Geniza. The fact the Mishnah says to in Geniza, that they need to put them in Geniza, is referring to another case, where not only are they written in another language, but they've actually become disintegrated. And if you might have thought, now I can put it in the bin, Kamash Malonda, you have to put it in Geniza. So again, our Mishnah teaches us two halachos, one about saving from a fire, and one about putting in Geniza. According to Rav Huna, saving from a fire applies only to those written in Lashon HaKodesh. Everything else is not allowed to be saved, but still needs Geniza. That's Rav Huna's Shitta, who holds that other languages you're not allowed to save. Rav Chisda says that you're allowed to save all languages. That Mishnah says you save everything, even any language, because at the end of the day it's got Episa Ketusha. But and the next part of the Mishnah, Tunim Geniza, which is obvious, if you're allowed to save them, of course you have to Geniza. The answer is the Geniza is referring to a case where it's actually worn away. Once it's worn away, you might have thought, well, now it's just disintegrating. You still have to put in Geniza. You have to treat it with respect. Meisei, we ask another question of Huna. Are you in Targum, if written in Targum, v'chol loshen, or in any language, v'chol loshen, matzim nois v'nazim, but you've to davona. That Tana holds you're allowed to read from them, so that's why the Tana holds it's written in any language, you can save it from a fire, because that Tana holds you're allowed to read from them. Toshva, you in Giftis, Midis, Ivis, Ilmus Ivanis. These are 5 different languages. Giftis, like I think Coptic, Midis is from Modai, Ivis is interesting. It's a kind of script which is not the normal script. Ilmus and Ivanis is Greek. Even though you're not allowed to read from them, so it says clearly, even if you're not allowed to, so you have to do Avana. I want to point out one very small thing, that Ivris is not a new language. Sorry, it's not a new language, it's a new script. Ivris. And one thing I find very interesting, I don't know if you ever look, that sometimes they show you in Hamidiyah, other places, an old seal, and they say to you, this is from the times of Chizkiyahu HaMelech, and it says on it Kodesh LaHashem, or it says on it Korban. And you look at the letters, I've seen it many times, you've seen there's many books you can look up, and you cannot read the language. You think to yourself, what in the world happened? And the answer is, the script that we have today is not the same script that they used to have. The script we have today is the correct script. For a time before Ezra, what happened was they changed the script for many years. One giver talks about it, and they had a different script. Now it's called Ksav Ivri. So if you write a Sefer Torah in that script, it's no good. There are those who know how to read that script. I've actually even once seen, you look it up online now, it's very easy. Before we had online, it was more complicated. But what happened was, you could actually see what these letters mean. It's the same language as Lashon HaKodesh. It's just a completely different script to our script. Now the Gemara brings a Machlokes Tanoim to the question we had at the beginning of the Gemara, Machlokes Amoraim, which was, are you allowed to save something written in a foreign language? That Machlokes is a Machlokes Tanoim. Tanoi, the Tanya. Hayuksuv in Targum, is written in Targum, Cholosh, Matzinos of Theatrika, you're allowed to. Rabbi Yossi, Me'ei Matzinos of Theatrika. Rabbi Yossi says you're not allowed to say them. Rabbi Yossi, Ma'aseh Baba Chalafta. It's interesting here. Rabbi Yossi was called Rabbi Yossi ben Chalafta. So Ma'aseh Ba'abo Chalafta literally means my father Chalafta. Chalafta was his name. Next time you have a baby boy, you can choose the name Chalafta. He was a very big tzaddik. He had a good son called Yosef ben Chalafta. Anyway, but he was called Abba Chalafta. So the Gaon already asked the question, you don't call your father by his name. And it says, interesting, that Abba over here, father, can be used as a term of respect. So you're allowed to say, my father is, for example, Moshe, right? Or Yosef. So Abba Chalafta doesn't mean my father Chalafta. It means father Chalafta. Like the Goyim that have the Elef Abdollahs, they call the Galach. They say father. They don't mean the father. They just mean a term of respect. So Ma'aseh Abba Chalafta, meaning the father, the great father, Chalafta, my father Chalafta. Anyway. Sholach is Gamliel Beribi. The word to Gamliel Beribi is also a term of respect. And what's it? Sheyeshiv al Shulchan Shel Yochanan HaNozov. Yochanan came from a place called Nozov. That's how they shouldn't explain it. We had the Sefer Yehuda Tirgum. We had the Sefer Yehuda translated. I remember your grandfather and Gamliel. Because you must remember there was many generations. There was Gamliel. He had a son called Shimon, whose son was called Gamliel. So Gamliel's grandfather was called Gamliel. So Yomi was standing on the step of the Har Bayis. They viewed in front of Sefer Yehuda Tirgum. He told the builder, stick it underneath the wall of bricks. Because he held that a sefer which is written in a foreign language is no good. You're not allowed to read from it. So when he saw it, he said, stick it underneath the bricks. So straight away, the grandson of Gamliel put it away in Geniza. They put on it a bowl of clay. Omar Rebbe doesn't like that way of the story is related. I have two questions. Where would they have clay? Are you allowed to destroy something? You're not allowed to destroy something just because you have a problem with it. And then there's got Kisra HaKodesh. He put it in a weak place, meaning a dangerous place, with Ma'akivin Me'alein and the rot on the own. Again, anything written in a foreign language, if you're allowed to save it or not. We had a Kashan from a Brisa that says clearly that you are allowed to save it. So the Gemara says it's Machlokes Tanoi. So the other Gemara says, Man Tanoi. Where do you see it's Machlokes Tanoi? Man Tanoi. Who is the Machlokes Tanoi? Tofuk of Tesla on base. If you're the Tanakama do Rabbi Yossi, that means the Tanakama said in that Brisa, if you remember, that if Matzilinois without making you allowed to. And Rabbi Yossi came along and said, in Matzilinois on that Brisa we just quoted, in the end of the day, how can you use that as a proof to you, Avuna? Avuna, you want to use it as a support to yourself. And you want to say it's a Machlokes Tanoi. But you can't. There's Machlokes Tanoim if you're allowed to save it or not. But maybe the argument whether you're allowed to save it is based on the argument as to whether you're allowed to read from them or not. But according to you, you're trying to say that even if you're not allowed to read from them, then you're not allowed to save it. Where do you see that? It means, where do you see there's a Tanoim that even the both agree that you're not allowed to read, but they still argue if you're allowed to save or not? Where do you see that? Because they could be arguing about whether you're allowed to read altogether. The Lord says, Rabbi Yossi the gift is, if you look in this Brisa, Rabbi Yossi holds that you're not allowed to save them. And Rabbi Yossi obviously holds that, and that's what we'll talk about, even if you say that you're not allowed to read from them, you're not allowed to save them. And the Brisa before then, the Brisa Ksuvim gift says, you're allowed to save them. That means the Machlokes Tanoim is not within this Brisa, because within this Brisa, it's not clear the Machlokes. Because could be the one who's saying they're not allowed to save it, holds you're not allowed to read from it, and the one who says you're allowed to save it, says you're allowed to read from it. But if you compare the two Brisas, the Brisa of gift says clearly, even though you're not allowed to read from them, you are allowed to save them. And the next Brisa basically says you're not allowed to save them because you're not allowed to read from them. So therefore you can see that the argument that whether you're allowed to save them or not is going even according to the man Omar that you're not allowed to read from them. Okay. So now we're finished with this question regarding foreign languages. The Gemara for quite some time is going to discuss Sifrei Torah or parchment or brachas and things which are not proper Sifrei Torah. Are you allowed to save them from a fire? Do they have kedusha? What about Sifrei Torah that have been rubbed out? This is the next topic for a long time. What are we allowed to do if they're written in a red ink instead of proper ink? If they're written, all these questions. Let's say somebody wrote out Shmona Esrei on a piece of parchment, or a kameen, or an amulet. Even if you've got the name of Hashem, and even if there are many topics of the Torah, for example, he writes in there, Rashi brings that's a nice possible. Nevertheless, everything gets burnt, them and the names of Hashem. Those who write pieces on parchment, they're like burnt Torah. Why are they like those who burn Torah? Because if you write it all over the place and you're not careful, what happens? You can't save them. And since you can't save them, and fires were quite a regular thing, one day they'll get burnt. So by just being careless and writing Divrei Torah, Psukim and Brachas everywhere, the name of Hashem everywhere, then it's on. It is interesting when the Biur Halacha writes in Siman Aleph. I remember hard to know how to do this. I once went to somebody's office, and you had Shavisi Hashem and Negdi Talmud with the name of Hashem written properly all over his office in pieces of paper. Which on one hand you think, wow, now that's greatness. The Biur Halacha writes that you shouldn't do that. Why? Yeah, there he says it's okay because it's not all over the place and it's in a shul. But I'm talking about in his office. It was not a shul. In Mishmah, that's what the Mishmah talks about it. That in shul you can. But in shul, why? Oh, that's what over here says. That's there should be halacha says more than that because he says people will throw it on the floor, trample it, burn it, get it wet and dirty and things like that. God tells us a short story. He used to write things in Siddur. That means he used to write all kinds of psukim. What we do is Shmuel went to tell Shmuel. Volach Shmuel, the bird, Shmuel came to check him. Kishayla B'Sulam was climbing up the ladder of Shmuel. Hilgashpur, the person realized it's being checked. Not on Tumas Shabachas. He took a whole packet of parchment which had on it the name of Hashem. The Shokah B'Sefer Shemaim, and he dropped it into a bucket of water. He was so scared of being caught out. He did a much worse avera. He chucked the whole thing into a bucket of water. The avera you did in the end is even worse than the avera you did in the beginning. When you wrote it originally, it's what's the word for it? When you wrote it originally, then there's a chance they might get destroyed in a fire. But now you went and threw them into a bucket of water, that's even worse, and therefore it's forbidden. So the person has to be careful to write the name of Hashem only in somewhere which is respectful and only somewhere where it's going to save it. If you write the Sefer Torah, B'Sam or B'Sikor, B'Kubus, B'Kankantam, you wrote it in either red paint or red pigment, red dye, or with gum, which is a kind of weak ink, or with Kankantam is a kind of sulfate. It means it's written in the right language with the wrong ink. Can you save it or not? And then more explains. You can ask this question whether you're asking according to the Mandoma who says you're allowed to say foreign languages, or whether or not. That means this question, when the ink is the wrong ink, is not dependent on the question on the wrong language. Why not? More explains. You can't say a foreign language because it's written in a foreign language. But here it's written in the proper language. So for maybe you should be allowed to say it. Ink lasts a long time. It doesn't last. Therefore, you might have thought, look, maybe you should be allowed to. I mean, the question is, you can't compare red paint to ink, because red paint doesn't last. But it's in Lashon HaKodesh. So it's got an advantage and a disadvantage to something which is written in a foreign language in ink. So therefore, the question is, are you allowed to save it or not? Regarding Gittin, the Gemara says that you're allowed to write a get in paint. Why? Because it lasts. Asks this, what's going on? Over here, the Gemara says it doesn't last. This Gittin asks the same question. The answer is that obviously it does last. You write in paint, it will last. The question is only how long it will last for. The Gemara over here means that at the end of the day, for a Sefer Torah to be kosher, we want it to be quite permanent. And for that, ink works, but paint, a dye doesn't work. But regarding a get, it's just enough that you should be able to read it and see it, and therefore it doesn't need to be as long-lasting. Okay. So, Omalei, in Matzinin. So he said to me, not allowed to save. That means if you've got a Sefer Torah written in sulfate or something, you can't save it. He said to Rav Nuna, said, you're allowed to say it. Tanya. If it says, I retract, and therefore he changed his mind, and indeed you're allowed to. My Tanya. There's no difference between all other Svar and Megillah, that's Megillah Esther. You can write most Nevim Ksuvim in any language. Or Megillah, actually, Ksiva Ashuris. You have to write it in the script of Ashuris. Ala Sefer, it has to be in a proper Sefer, not just piece of parchment. Ubejur has to be proper ink. So therefore, since we see that all other Svarim can be written in any ink, is a raya that it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be black ink, it can be black paint, it can be anything. So therefore, it's a good enough Sefer. If you want to write Esther, Yomi, or not Esther, sorry, Esther's the wrong one. If you want to write Shashim or Yeshaya or Yomi and anything like that, you're allowed to. Since you can see you're allowed to, therefore the Mishnah says you're allowed to save all Kisvei HaKodesh. It's referring to any kind of ink. And if you're all allowed to save it, even if it's not a good quality ink, even if it's only red paint or red dye or sulfate or anything like that, you're allowed to save the what's the word for the Sefer Torah, which is written in a bad language. Can you hear me still, Chaim? Yes? Yeah, it's clear? Okay.
Yeah.
Says the Gemara. Boimine Rav Avuna bar Choluv Rav Nachman. Rav Avuna the son of Choluv asked for Rav Nachman. Sefer Torah Shemila Lakit Runim Chomish Eisios. A Sefer Torah that has less than 85 letters. You wrote a whole Sefer Torah, and it got very, very, very badly worn. And page after page got completely distorted, and now there's only 85 letters in the whole Torah, which is legible, which you can read. Is it still got the name of a Sefer Torah that you could save it on Shabbos? Now, why do we mention 85 letters? Because the Parshas Ba'aloscha, which we had just a couple of weeks ago, it's got the story of Vahi bin Soyaon. And if you look in Vahi bin Soyaon, if you look in the Sefer Torah, it's got there a nun, a backwards nun, before and after the words of Vahi bin Soyaon. The reason is because it is considered like brackets. It is considered like a separate part of the Torah. The more later is going to tell us there are 7 parts of the Torah. What are the 7 parts of the Torah? Bereishis, Shavuos, Vayikra, that's 3. Devarim is 4. And then you've got Bamidbar till Vahi bin Soya, then Vahi bin Soya, and then you've got the end of Bamidbar from Vahi bin Soya to the end. That means Vahi bin Soya is considered its own chelek of Torah. Now, how many letters are there in Vahi bin Soya? 85 letters. So we see a part of Torah to be significant only has to be 85 letters long. So the most question over here is, what happens if you've got a Sefer Torah, but it doesn't have 85 letters? It's got the base of Bereishis and the Gimel of the Nun of Noach and etc. all the way through the Torah. It doesn't have 85 letters. So does it have Kedusha or not? So again, you should ask, what about Vahi bin Soya itself? It means, why did you ask such a complicated question? You ask a question when all you've got left is Vahi bin Soya. If you've got Parshas Vahi bin Soya and it's missing a few letters, that's not a question. Why? The Kimmel we ask, since it's got the name of Hashem twice inside it, I've got the last page. That means if you've got Vahi bin Soya, you've got a whole Torah, everything got deleted except for the Parshas Vahi bin Soya. And even the Parshas Vahi bin Soya, which is 85 letters, a couple of those words were deleted. So therefore, you might have asked that question. So, well, that's not a question. Why is that not a question? Because it's got the name of Hashem in twice, therefore it is important. A Sefer Torah which doesn't have 85 letters, and it doesn't have the name of Hashem, because all the names of Hashem were deleted. What's the deal? So there's 2 problems. It doesn't have 85 letters, and it doesn't have the name of Hashem. Of course, got the name of Hashem, of course you can save it. You can't save it. So a Sefer Torah which is so badly ruined that it doesn't have 85 letters, you can't. Targum shekosvu mikra, or mikra shekosvu targum. If you've got parts of the Torah which you wrote it in instead of targum, you wrote it in Lashon HaKodesh. There's only one place in the Torah which is written in targum. Anybody know? Yigar Sa'adusa, end of Parshas Vayetze. That Lavan calls it Yigar Sa'adusa. But in the Nevi'im and Ksuvim, you've got much, much more. Most of the Nil is written in targum. And you've got many places which is written in targum, right? You've got a bit. So again, but if any part of Torah Nevi'im and Ksuvim, which was supposed to be targum, and you wrote it in Lashon HaKodesh, alternatively, or Mikosh Kosov targum, that's most of the Torah, most of the Nevi'im and Ksuvim, where instead of writing it in Lashon HaKodesh, you wrote it targum. So some sefer, to be shticky, whatever, or to be complicated, went to write targum in Lashon HaKodesh, or Lashon HaKodesh targum. The Ksav Ivis, or he wrote it in the wrong script, Matzilim Pnei Adleiko. Ve'in tzarich lema targum shebezah v'shutaniyah v'shuvatayah, kavachayma, if you wrote the actual Targum the correct way. That means you wrote the Targum correctly in the Torah Nevi'im and Ksuvim, then it's okay. Targum Sheb'Torah Ma'aniu. What is Targum in the Torah? Yigar Sa'adusa. That means the Gemara understood in the Havamina that when we said like this, if you write Targum, Targum, or Targum as it is, you'll save the Sefer Torah. The Gemara understood that we talked about there was only 2 letters in the whole Torah, 2 words, Yigar Sa'adusa. So you see over here that you save a Sefer Torah just for 2 words. Meaning like this. You had 85 letters which were legible, because less than 85 letters you don't save. But regarding those 85 letters, or with included in them, was the words Yigar Sa'adusa. And you might have thought that since this person went and wrote Galeit, the word, the Targum, the Lashon HaKodesh for Yigar Sa'adusa is Galeit. So instead of writing Yigar Sa'adusa, he wrote Galeit. You might have said, well, now I don't have 85 because you have to minus those words. Kamash Malon, that they can complete the 85. Again, the question was raised, are you allowed to save something which got less than 85 letters? The more Pascha, you cannot save it. You cannot save it. That means if Chasro puts got a Sefer Torah which is so badly damaged that it's got less than 85 letters, you cannot save it. Asks the Gemara, but we see from a Brisa that says that if you've got in the Torah the words in Targum written in Lashon HaKodesh, Lashon HaKodesh written in Targum, you're all allowed to save it. That the Gemara haven't understood that we're talking about a situation where that's all you've got. You've got a whole Sefer Torah where everything's been rubbed out except for the words Zigar Sa'adusa, and the words Zigar Sa'adusa were written in Lashon HaKodesh, Galeid, and you're allowed to save it. But you see the word Galeid doesn't have 85 letters, so you see you're all allowed to save. Answers one Nevaya. That's Lahashtim to complete, meaning that you have a Sefer Torah which has within it 85 letters, and therefore you're allowed to save it. But part of the 85 letters were Lashon HaKodesh written in Targum or Targum written in Lashon HaKodesh. The Chiddush is that in the end of the day, since it was written mostly correctly, and this bit was written in the wrong language, it's still okay to save. But if that's all you've got, you can't save it. So we've had so far quite a few questions. Question number one was, Torah Nevi'im written in a foreign language. What's the halacha? It's Vachikas Vanan Avachista. And fascinatingly enough, the Rif baskets, that you're not allowed to save it. But we don't pass like this Rif. Does anybody know why? Should know why. Something written in a foreign language. The Rif says you're not allowed to save it because we pass like a Vuna. You're not allowed to save it. Why do we pass like this Rif? Because nowadays we're allowed to read in any language. So the whole Gemara is not the Galamaisa. Okay. So we don't pass like that. Rif, we pass you're all allowed to save foreign language. Then we had the question, something which is written as a brocha. Let's say, for example, you write out Shmonesra. You're allowed to save it, you're not allowed to save it. What's the din? You're not allowed to save it. What about if it's written in red paint? You're allowed to save it, you're not allowed to save it, you're all allowed to save it. What's the raya? Because the Gemara says there's no difference between Megillah and other Swarm except for the fact that Megillah has written, otherwise everything else will be written in paint. So therefore you see that it's kosher. So if it's written in paint, you are allowed to save it. And now finally we had 85 letters. Less than 85 letters, you're not allowed to save it. 85 letters and more, you are allowed to save it. So you have to remember all these halachas. Another shaila. Do they have to be together or do they have to be scattered? Even if they're scattered. Basically, which has become decayed, if you can gather 85 letters, it says clearly that you can gather them. Gather always seems to be saying that the letters are scattered. Is rather, even if the letters are scattered, it's still okay. So you have to do avona. Meaning, the words are scattered. You've got Veidabe is a whole word, and you've got another face Moshe, a whole word. But if the letters are scattered, it's no good. It's got three levels. When all 85 words are together, the letters with the words, for example, that's definitely good according to everything. When the letters are scattered, that's a machlokas Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. When the words are scattered, then even Rav Huna is forced to agree that that's okay. Because the Bryce says before, if it's lelakit, if it's to gather, it's okay. So gathering means gathering words. But letters scattered, that's still a machlokas of Huna and Rav Chisda. And we take a pasuk l'chumra, meaning that if there's a Sefer Torah which has only got letters scattered, not words, that means there's not enough of full words to come to 85 letters, we don't say the Sefer Torah. But if it's got words, that means even if the words are not together, one place says Vaydaber, one place says Moshe, and something else, and all together you add up all the good words, and it comes to 85 letters, that's good. Good save. Yes. We're going to go into much more complicated. What does it mean to save? Because we're discussing over here which Isurim is involved in the saving. I didn't want to go too much. If you've got the ability to turn over, Rashi says, in the second Rashi of the period, the more discussed later, that means we're only being matter over here where it's osibid d'rabbanan. We're taking it from your house into okay, we'll go to the next mission, discuss in much more length, or the fact that it's an effort. We're not permitting over here to actually take it into a shusarabim. Okay, so these are questions. It's a suffix to Rabbanon. That's what I should say. It's a suffix to Rabbanon. So if you're not sure, you're allowed to say. Now the more discusses Vahi ben Sa'ar. Tono Rabbanon, Vahi ben Sa'ar, and Vahi Moshe. Parshas were also like the Shmoch Simonius. Hashem made signs with the man on the matter before it and after it. Lo man to tell you. Topic of the Sa'ar and Mudalef. She'ein ze mekomo. This is not its place. Rabbi Omer, Lo min Hashem uzeh. Rather, the reason is because it's a Sefer Choshev. We've got two explanations why it's got two nuns. Either because it's in the wrong place, you put something in brackets because it's in the wrong place, or because it's very, very, very important. There's a lot of Torah over here, very, very lot of Torah. One Torah is like this. Hashem Pinkas used to speak about this every single year at great, great length. It was going to explain that Klal Yisrael did that Averos. We'll say it outside Shittas HaTosis because it's easier. Shittas HaTosis is that the Torah says Klal Yisrael left Har Hashem and they ran away from Har Hashem, lack of interest. And then there's Vayibin Sa'oin, and then the rest of the parsha. If you look in Ba'al Loischa, I'm saying this very quickly, but it's very interesting. The beginning of Ba'al Loischa is one of the most exciting parshas of the Torah. The end of Ba'al Loischa is one of the worst parshas of the Torah. Beginning of Ba'al Loischa, you have Pesach Sheni. Klal Yisrael can't keep Pesach, you provide another Yom Tov for them. Imagine somebody said, I can't keep Rosh Hashanah, give another Rosh Hashanah. No, can't keep Pesach, another Pesach. Pi Hashem Yachnu, Pi Hashem Yisol, everybody's chosen, everybody travels at Pi Hashem, everything goes well. Imdu Veshmo, which when it says stand, everything goes mamish straight. Then you've got Vahibin Soin, and then you've got the Misoinim, and then you've got the Bali Taiva, and then you've got Miriam speaking Oshno, everything goes bad. And in the middle you've got Vahibin Soin. He used to say like this, that one of the difficulties we have is that the person is willing to spend time serving Hashem. Comes to shul, to down, comes to learn, but he wants to be able to leave Hashem behind at various stages in his day, to be able to forget about it, to be able to unwind. Vahibin Soin meant that when Hashem was finally traveling, Klal Yisrael said, okay, finally, finished. Now we can relax. We have to switch off completely. And he says, when a person goes with that mindset, that is the beginning of a person's downfall. A person has to be aware, it's very deep, and he's going to write to say very kitzah, that a person has to be aware there's no such thing as saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, okay, I'll serve you 9 till 5. After that, 9 to 5 is a long day. No. The person has to be able to travel with Hashem, meaning that you go to the beach, you're sitting there. Of course, you behave slightly different, but you have to be still with the memory that you're a servant of Hashem. And that was the big difference between the beginning of Ba'al Loischa with the travel with Hashem and then Ba'al Loischa with the didn't. And that's why they put brackets. It's a whole thing. It's a whole new topic, traveling with Hashem. We'll come to it a bit more in a minute. Kaman Ozla, what says, who's it going like? That the Apostle in Mishnah describes the greatness of Torah, that it has 7 pillars. Elu Shiva Sifra Torah. That's 7 Sifra Torah. Where's the 7 Sifra Torah? Come on, Rebbe is going like Rebbe. Why Rebbe? Because if you work it out, Rebbe says it's a whole sefer on its own. And as we said before, you've got Bereshit, Shabbos, Vayikra, then Bamidbar to the till Vayibin Soya, and Vayibin Soya, the end of Bamidbar. The rest of Bamidbar, and the Devarim, you've got 7. Man Tana the Polygalate Rebbe. The Tana Mishkum said the Pasha one day when Mashiach comes, we're going to change the Torah. It's very hard to understand. And we're going to take out these psukim and put them in the right place. Why? Because we're going to put it in the right place, which is in the parsha of the traveling, Rashas and Bamidbar, the Dekolim, etc. To distinguish between one promise and the next. We don't want to have a chain of Klal Yisrael doing Averos, because a chain of Klal Yisrael doing Averos would make things much worse. What's the second Avera? Bayom K'misonim, the complaint. That they went away from Hashem by the flags. Again, it says there, if you look in Ba'al Loischa, Klal Yisrael traveled, then it says Vayibin Soin, and then it says the Misonim. Here Rashi is a very difficult pshat, and Mizrahi on Parshas Ba'al Loischa goes great length about this Rashi. Because Be'emes is like this, if you look in the Torah, it doesn't say clearly 2 Averos and put Vayibin Soin in the middle. Because what happens is like this. People don't notice much because it's quite quickly. After Vayibin So'on, it says Vayibam K'misoinim. Klal Yisrael just complained. It doesn't say even what they complained about. And Vativa Bam Eish Hashem, there was a big fire. And as Moshe Avinu David, Vatishka Eish, the fire settled. And then, V'asashtav Hashem v'kirbo Yisayvu Taiva, then the group amongst Klal Yisrael got a big desire. Mi achilinu bosa, who can we have meat? And they complain about meat. And then Hashem sends Slov, and they all die when they eat the Slov. So you've got 2 terrible stories. One is they had the complaint. We don't know what they complained about. And then you've got the story of the Slav, of the complaining of the meat. So really, Vayibin So'on, to split the 2, where should have been put inside? After the Misonim. And it doesn't, to put it before the Misonim. Rashi, because of this kasha, Rashi tells us that the Misonim really began before they even traveled. So when it says that by Yisru they traveled, the Misonim, by Yom K'misonim, says in Mizrahi, it means like this. They were already complaining. They'd already started complaining when they were at Har Sinai. So Vayibin So'on is a bit of a break, because when it says they traveled from Har Sinai, they were already in the mode of complaining. Then they had Vayibin Sa'on, and then the Torah describes the complaint. It's a bit difficult according to Rashi, because it's a bit difficult that the Torah didn't actually put it in between the two. Let's see Rashi inside. Hashem, it's about 10 lines from the narrow lines. Within those 3 days of traveling, they had already complained. And then Vayibin Sa'on comes after that. So therefore, that's the bit the Abeira they did, which is very difficult because it's not mamish in the middle. Only because they already started that complaint. Tosha says much easier. Tosha says like this, that by Yisum Hashem, the Torah didn't need to say by Yisum Hashem. What could the Torah have written? By Yisum Sinai. Why did the Torah say by Yisum Hashem for the mountain of Hashem? Till now, always called Har Sinai. The answer is they saw it, the mountain of Hashem, and they saw this is where Hashem's presence is. They got fed up. By Yisum Hashem, they want to get away as much as possible from the mountain of Hashem to get away. They said, the Medrash says, they said, if we stay here any longer, he might give us more mitzvahs. So by Yisum Hashem, they traveled from the mountain of Hashem. And then we have Vayibin Sa'on. And then we have our Safsuf and the thing. That means that the splitting is not between the Misoinim and the Bosso. It's between Vayisum Hashem and the Misoinim, which is much easier to understand. Rashi doesn't say it like that. I don't know. I don't know why. He explains the second Tana before the first Tana. I don't know. I hear. The second. What is the why we ask the second one before the first? Okay. I hear. One thing I remember once I had this child that refused to go to school, refused point blank, and here the Tosha says, "Continue kayetz beis sefer shibu." Look at the top Tosas. When it comes to the first Bekuchas, let's see the whole truth. When we read any other came, and upon this Shino Kedama Bamedesh, Yisu Shinosum Asina Derech Shomim, continue Kayetz Vis a Sefer Shebureach Levahilechloi. Kach you Boichim Asina, they run away Derech Shomim, if you show them to Sina Amak, and Shwach this book, and this was love, and this is about to so on. They run away like a child away from school. So I remember, I struggled away with it. I remember Mashiach said to me, that's faked. Of course, it's a struggle because you have to find a way to settle it. But the fact is, it's not a sign of any deep, bad thing. At the end of the day, he said like this. He said, Chazal were upset with Klal Yisrael for being like a child running away from school. Meaning, a child running away from school is doing nothing wrong. He's doing a perfectly healthy thing running away from school, because that's the natural status of a child. The problem was with Klal Yisrael that they were behaving like those children. Meaning, if you see a child who says, I hate school and wants to run away from school, you shouldn't say, the Gemara over here says that's Peronus. That's not the Peronus. The Peronus was the Klal Yisrael as adults and as a nation were behaving like the child. When the child does that, that's absolutely fine. Chazal never saw that as anything wrong. This is an interesting point. The margins, shall say for Torah. So we're coming up to another question. We had quite a few foreign languages, wrong ink. Now we're coming up to what about if they rubbed away? What about Gilyonim shall say for Torah? You've got a lot of margins, quite a lot of margins. Did you know? When you roll a Sefer Torah, the first page of the Sefer Torah and the last page has to be completely blank, that it should wrap around the wood. There shouldn't be any letters around the wood. So that's got the beginning is quite a big margin, and you've got a margin at the top, margin at the bottom, and a margin between every column. So what about these margins? Let's say the Sefer Torah, for whatever reason, all you've got left is the margins. Are you allowed to save that? Sefer Torah should bother Sefer Torah decayed. Typically, today, if it's got 85, if it's not got 85 letters, means it's all been worn away, completely worn away. So what happens? You're not allowed to save it. What do you not allowed to save it? But the margins are not missing anything. It's more boloshani. Then we talk about where it decayed. It's not a normal margin. We talk about a margin. We talk about Sefer Torah where the actual words are becoming to a certain or crumbling. So a margin which is crumbling, that we never discussed. We're talking about a normal margin. Are you allowed to save that or not? Which got rubbed away. Now there, it didn't decay. But rather, what happened was somebody just took an eraser and he managed to cut away rub away the letters. It's not decayed. Save it because of the actual. So now the Gemara first asks, the place that you rubbed away, that itself should be Kaddish. You took out the sifter, you rubbed out all the words. the place where you rubbed away, if you say that a margin is Kodesh, so the place that you rubbed away should also be Kodesh. So therefore, if you rubbed away the whole Torah, the fact is you've still got Kedusha because you've got the place. Well, it says, no. Meaning, the place of the letters themselves, everybody agrees that if you rub away the letters, they've got no Kedusha. Why? Because Bishlem with the margin, it was never supposed to have any letters. So therefore you can imagine it's got Kedusha without any letters. But the place where it's supposed to have the words, and you've gone and rubbed them away, so then everybody agrees that that's lost its Kedusha. Because it was supposed to have words, and you've gone and taken away the words, so then it's lost the Kedusha. The Gemara says, I only had a shine at the top of the page, the bottom of the page, between paragraphs, beginning of the Sefer Torah, the end of the Sefer Torah. Meaning again, the Gemara asks the question, what about margins? Says the Gemara first from a place which is decayed. The Gemara says you can't compare that. We're not talking about where it's decayed. So the Gemara says, what about a place which you rubbed out? The place that you rubbed out has still got the value of a margin, nothing less. The Gemara says, no, it's not true. The place which is written on and has now been deleted is worse than the margin. Why? Because the place which was written on and has been deleted, the Kedusha was because of the writing. And now you've deleted the writing, so it's not the Kedusha. But a place which is only in the margin, and therefore it never had any words, so maybe that should still have its normal Kedusha, because it hasn't gone down at all. If you say that margins do have Kedusha, so Sefer Torah which has been rubbed out, we said, the words are no Kodesh. The place where the words were also not Kodesh, because it's been rubbed out. But what about the margins? What says the guys for Shadi? We're talking about this Sefer Torah, which somebody cut away all the margins and threw them away. And the words themselves, he went and rubbed out. So therefore now you've got nothing left of Kedusha, but you still don't have a raya for the empty areas. Again, you've got no raya for the margins. Why? Because we're talking about where it's all been cut away, and therefore they're not there anymore. And the place where there was words, a person went and rubbed them all out, deleted them. And that doesn't have Kedusha, because since it was once with words, and you've gone and taken away the words, it's a little worse than a place which never had words in the first place. Toshema, Hagilyonim, the margin Shemala v'Shematash from Pasha Pasha v'Daf v'Daf v'Tchilas Sefer Sefer Metamnis Hayadayim. If a person touches the Sefer Torah, even if he doesn't touch the place of the actual writing, he just touches the top or the bottom, his hands become tummy. Do you remember we had this Gemara earlier? Why does the person become tummy? Why does the hands become tummy? Anybody remember? Because they used to store the Sefer Torah with truma, and then the mice would come and eat the truma and eat the Sefer Torah, so they wanted to make Torah tummy. Is a raya that the margin has a margin is tummy? Is a raya that's Kodesh? So what Dumagav Sefer Torah Shani? They were talking about what's part of the Sefer Torah. Part of the Sefer Torah, it's got Kedusha, and therefore it makes Tumah. But how do you know the margins on their own without the Sefer Torah where there's good? Toshema, Hagilyonim, margins of Sefer Minim, Sfarm, Mitabak, because Ematzinosim Playat Leka, the Sofim Kima. You burn them, Hinbas, send them, and the names of Hashem. My love, Gilyonim, the Sefer Torah. Do we not mean two things? Gilyonim meaning margins, and another thing, Sefer Minim, the books of Apikosim. Look, Gilyonim is Sefer Minim. We're talking about the margins of Apikosim. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, Hash the Sefer Minim go fire in Matzil Gilyonim in Boyam. If you're talking about the margins, why do you have to tell me such a chiddush? Even the proper Sefer Torah written by Apikoros, you're not allowed to save. Why do you have to tell me that the margins of the Apikoros you don't need to save? What's the chiddush? What says the Sefer Minim Gilyonim, that the Bryce is teaching us that Apikosim are like margins, meaning they have no Kedusha. The Gemara is not proving it, the Gemara is suggesting it, which means that we have no proof yet as to whether margins have got Kedusha or not. From this Bryce, it's not two separate things, margins and Apikosis. It's the same thing. Apikosis is like margins. We're going to stop over here. It's a bit early. I'm not always going to go with the thing because we'll see how it goes. It's a new topic as well. Any questions? No. Okay, Mr. Look forward to every day, Mr. 8:10 until Prague changes by a few minutes, and then we'll assess. Yeah, we'll make it okay. Very good. Shkoyach.